Yo people, Mr. L Rock back in the building. Been away for a while. Me and the crew had a couple things to do, but the GRP is back. Also, check out the other channel, Mr. L Rock Rants. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to get straight into this one. So, Noel Clarke. Noel Clarke has come from the cave just all of a sudden. Now, me and the boys we've touched on Noel Clarke's story a few times. And I think the last time was about 6 months ago. And then we did one 11 months ago. So it was a while. It was a while. And this was the last thing that we heard.
This comes to us via Deadline, and it says British actor and producer Noel Clarke will not face criminal charges over sexual harassment allegations made last year after London's Metropolitan Police dropped its investigation, citing a lack of evidence.
All right. So that was 11 months ago. So 11 months ago, police said the criminal investigation doesn't meet the threshold. Okay, so Noel Clarke pretty much bust case. So in the last 11 months, first of all, we ain't heard anything. But for me, where have you been? Where have you been? And that's all I wanted to know. In all the things, in all the shows that we did, my thing is, where are you? Now, he's come out of the woodwork, and I've seen a clip on, I've watched it all, but first of all, I saw a clip on the Winners podcast. For those that don't know about the Winners podcast, you got to big up my man Pounds and Doug, one of the best, one of my top 5 podcasts out there at the moment. But Pounds asked him directly, where have you been? This is what he said.
Why didn't you speak more, like through the years? Because now listening to you speak now, you've got a lot to say. You're eloquent, you can carry a conversation, all good, you can do all of the above. Why haven't you over the years spoken more? And why didn't you speak when the allegations were going on? Why didn't you speak more? Because a lot of people were like, we ain't saying nothing. I'd be defending it tooth and nail. I'd be making sure I'm on every program, Were you invited and did you get the opportunity? And if so, why didn't you take those opportunities to speak more on Good Morning Britain and this one and Piers and Loose, whatever?
So the first thing, why don't I speak more generally? Because I guess I was from the old school mentality of kind of like, I'm doing my thing, man. I'm not fussed with this bullshit. Like, this is minor to me.
So, you're old school, you're not fussed with this. What do you mean you're not fussed with this? If people are coming out blatantly lying about you, what do you mean you're not fussed? Oh, I'm bigger than that. What are you talking about?
Like if a little guy from university just comes out of university making his first EP, this is Jay-Z, you think Jay-Z's bothered with him? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So that was my mentality of like, I'm gone. Like I'm not interested in that. But it wasn't wise. In terms of why I didn't speak when this thing happened, I can't really articulate to you the trauma that this thing done. And I'm not taking away from the survivors or the people that came at me. I'm not trying to take away from their trauma or what they believe their stories are.
What are you talking about? Trauma. You're talking about trauma, but yet you're not taking away from survivors. Now, this is your words, you know. You're calling them survivors. Now, if I ain't done nothing, there are no survivors. So you fully well know, and you're trying to be respectful because you don't want this. There could be other things going on, but you don't want this to come out. So you're telling us that they're survivors, but yet we must believe your innocence. Make it make sense.
I know who I am, right? But what I want to say is like, unless you've been through something like this, you can't, I couldn't speak, bro. I was in so much shock. Like I was like, I'm out. Firstly, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Paparazzi outside your front door?
They was outside my door for 6 weeks.
Following it. This is what I always thought. Sorry, I want you.
You couldn't speak. Why couldn't you speak? That was the time you needed to speak. Nah, nobody don't really know Noel Clarke like that. We don't know. But if I'm not hearing you defend yourself, why would I defend you? Why would I believe this isn't true? Now, yes, I haven't been through this experience and you're talking about trauma. But if you're going to embarrass me, if the world's going to if the world's going to embarrass me and say in front of my children, my mother, my wife, etc., etc., then I'm coming out. I'm fighting. You have to fight. You said you've worked hard for your career. You're a director, a producer, a BAFTA winner, but yet you're just going into a corner. You're an actor. Even act until you're over the trauma. So put on an act that you're innocent until you're ready to really be innocent. But you're not doing none of that. You just went quiet and then you did it from behind your legal team, etc., etc. You're only out now because you bust case. If this was still ongoing, we still probably wouldn't have heard anything.
I don't want to cut you. I always watched it and I thought, his missus in the school run, the parents must be so peak. What was that section for your wife and that school run and all of that? What was that like? Were they following her as well to and from?
We left for a few weeks. We had some friends that gave us a spot, so we went.
So then he appears on the ZZ Mills show, and she done quite a good interview. And she asked some of the questions that I wanted to know, like this one.
20 women. Do you understand why it's hard for people to be like, how can 20 women all be lying?
Of course, yeah. I understand completely how people can see that, and I've never turned around and said 20 people were lying. The reason I've denied everything is because I think a lot of them are lying, or I know a lot of them are lying, and then there's a lot of things that are out of context. There's a lot of things that were conversations that people were involved with and are now acting like they weren't involved in those conversations. There's a lot of situations that were, I say, mutual, what's the filthy word we can't say now, mutual banter or jokes, and now people are acting like they weren't. So I'm not going to turn around and say, well, yeah, I've done this and done that if I've not done it. It would be easier for me to sit here and cry as easy and be like, I did all these things, I'm repenting, I'm sorry, I've worked on myself. And you know what? I have worked on myself. I have worked on myself because
I actually don't think it is easy to cry and repent and say you're sorry. I don't think it is easy. That's why you're not doing it. That's very hard to do. But we continue.
at the end of the day, when those things sort of come out, you have to look at yourself and go, right, was I making people feel like that? Boy, I didn't know. I need to go work on myself. So I have worked on myself.
You didn't know that you was making people feel uncomfortable or that you was just being horrible. What you didn't know. Big grown-ass man. You didn't know. You know, you're an employer. Because half these people are coming in because you're bringing them in. So you don't know how to treat people.
Of course, if I didn't look like me, I could have worked on myself for a month in the Priory and I'd have been back on television already. But when you look like me, it's a little bit of a different story. So 2 years later, here I am. But
What does he mean by when you look like me? What, when you look like me? What, when you look black? First of all, if you look like you, we all grew up, because me and Noel's, I think we're like the same age. So you know that you have to work better. Your record has to be cleaner. You need to do things properly because we can't get away with certain things. So, you know, what do you mean by that?
worked on myself, but the point is that I was making, it's like, I can't just sit here and be like, yes, this happened and that happened. If it didn't happen, it would be easier for me to just cry and say, I'm a very straightforward person. So if I can look back and say, you know what, there's moments where I've probably spoke to people that in a way that people might find a bit too harsh. I can go, yeah, maybe. But you know, when you're under pressure and everything is on your shoulders, and if anything goes wrong on this project or this thing, or no one's looking at anybody else, it's looking at you. Sometimes you want things done the way you want them done, and you want them done when you want them done. And that can come across at times as intimidating, or that can come across at times as, why is he talking to a man like that?
Do you think
You see, now I understand that. I understand the pressures that you're under completely. However, it seems like, now I don't know, because I'm not hearing reports of guys, but the reports that I'm hearing is that it's gyal you're chatting to. It's females. It's women. So if you are under these pressures, barring the whole Adam Deacon thing, because there are two sides to that story, that's something of its own. I'm just hearing you talk to gyal like that and banter and this and that. I'm not hearing any brothers come up in this. So make it consistent if that is what you're saying.
Know me, I'm very warm. I'm very, like, this sounds crazy. People at home like, this guy. I'm very warm. Like, but I don't let anybody in. And so therefore, for 95% of the people I meet, I am standoffish. I didn't get into this business. I got into this business to work hard, bust my ass and do well. I didn't really come into it to make friends. So my friends are either guys from road when I was young, and I wasn't doing that, which I've discussed many times, but I got friends that were, or guys that I met in sixth form college that are still my friends today. I didn't really make many friends in the industry, and that's...
See, that's all well and good. No one said you had to come and make friends. But being kind has got nothing to do with it. Hey, how you doing? Are you alright? Oh, good to see you. That don't mean you're begging friend. What's friends got to do with it? You're standoffish because why? Why? You don't let people in. Why? Not letting people in signals one thing to me. Some sort of trauma for you. What are you afraid of? What do you not want them to see? I don't want to let them in. It's got nothing to do. You ain't got to make friends with everybody. I say hello to people every day. Whether it's the shopkeeper, whether it's the man driving the bus. It's nothing to do with friendship. You can't walk around in the real world being standoffish and have some sort of attitude. It just won't work.
That's fact. And even, you know, with all due respect, you said you seen me out a few times. I kind of challenged that a little bit because I never went out.
I mean,
never
like,
went
I'm
out.
talking about kidulthood days when you would have like screenings and all those type of things. You
Understood.
You wouldn't.
No, because you probably were like 5 years old or something like that.
I mean, I can't. You know,
Who's that girl in the pram, man? What's she doing in here?
No, but
Where's her parents?
I was there. I
Understood.
kept the thing. So that's what I mean,
but I do agree with that. Like, people didn't like me, but you know what? I didn't care because I'm not warm to people. You had to know me. But if you don't know me, I'm not trying to be your friend. I'm not a big friend. I was never starstruck. This is another thing. I was never starstruck. I wouldn't see someone and be like, yo, there's so and so. And I walked in a room, and this is where people go, he's all, because arrogant.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Arrogant. You know what I mean? He's this and that. I was never starstruck by no one. So I'd walk into a room with the biggest movie stars, and in my mind, I'm like, sure. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be there too. Right. That's what I want to work to. That's what I want to work towards. I was never rude to anyone, but like when I used to see them people around them like flies on shit, I was like, that's not me. And you know what would happen by the end of the night? At some point, that big star would come and speak to me because they're thinking to themselves, who the fuck is this guy that is not around me? That's how I was. I'm not a warm person. So in terms of that, I think the vitriol and the reactions afterwards I was very disliked. And so people couldn't, and when you're disliked and you keep doing well, burns people in a different way.
I actually don't think they was thinking that. They weren't thinking that. You know what? They were probably just being kind. It's called networking. It's called moving around. Like, that's how the world moves. you can't move insular. So, for me, he's come out, you know, watch the full interview on the Winners podcast. Watch that one first, because I prefer that one. And then ZZ's and tell me what you think. But for me, I just feel like you're talking nonsense. You're talking nonsense. Listen to what he said. He is calling them survivors. These victims are survivors. He acknowledges that they're survivors. He acknowledges that he's not very friendly. He's standoffish. He's very warm for his 5%, whatever. And I don't think, you know, whether he's kind or not, if you produce good stuff, you produce good stuff. No one ain't hating. I think you're an idiot if you're gonna hate just because he's doing well. I want people to do well. Do well, yes, but you allowed people to be victims. And the key thing for me is you never came out. You never came out. Even when he was on the podcast with Pounds. Pounds said, ITV, loose women, blah, blah, blah. Where were you? You was nowhere. Oh, trauma. Let me tell you something. There are people that go to war every day. You think the minute they hear a couple gunshots, they can just cry in the trenches? Like, you're used to being in the public eye, speaking, acting, rubbing shoulders with certain people. I don't want to hear this trauma talk, because if someone's trying to destroy your career and it's not real, then you need to defend. You're defending it for your wife, your family, your kids. Because you didn't meet the threshold, just because you didn't meet the threshold for any legal proceedings to continue, therefore now here you are trying to salvage your career. Now, the other actors that were around him, I don't blame them for distancing themselves, because boy, everyone's just got to do what they got to do. But like ZZ said, there's no smoke without fire.
It is what, and this is why. And you guys mentioned about, you know, coming out. What did he do? He went and hid somewhere. He let his partner Jason Mazza make phone calls to find out who made these allegations. That's not something an innocent person does. Because how would you know?
Yeah,
how would you know? Thank you. That's exactly what I said to Damien. How would you know who to call? How would you know? That means
well, if I said to you today, 20 people have just made allegations you've done something. Damien, call someone.
Why?
Who am I calling? Well, I don't know, somebody.
Let me get out the Rolodex.
Yeah, people. Call every single person I've ever worked with in my whole life.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is why I'm saying that, yes, I don't know for sure that he did it, but I am 90% sure that he did it.
Right.